Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so blessed to have with us Reverend Najuma Smith Pollard, who is going to be here to speak with us about Black women and COVID, her own personal experience of how it has been affecting her so far in this moment. I'm going to start off by asking Pastor Najuma to introduce herself.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Reverend Najuma Smith Pollard. I am the proud founding pastor of Word of Encouragement Church here in Los Angeles, but I'm also the program director for the Cecil Murray Center for Community Engagement, which is part of the Center for Religion and Civic Culture at USC. And so the core of my work, in addition to pastoring and ministry here in Los Angeles, is also around civic engagement, working with congregations, around civic engagement issues, but also around capacity building for our faith-based nonprofits, as well as some activism work here and around Los Angeles.
How has COVID affected you?
You know what, I will say two things. First thing I'll say is I am thankful to God that my family, my children, myself, my immediate family, my extended family, none of us got COVID.
Amen.
The closest person to me and relation, family wise, my granddaughter's mother, she had COVID, but she's a young lady. She's in her 20s. So she fared fairly well through it. She wasn't asymptomatic, but she did well in her recovery. Other than that, everyone in my family, to include my eldest living relative, which I think is my aunt, who was in a senior living facility, and we were afraid she might get it.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't happen. And so I want to say, my first thing I want to acknowledge is that God has been kind to our family and to my immediate community. To my knowledge, nobody in our church was hospitalized or anything like that. Now, on the external, yes, there were some family members lost, but for the most part, my immediate community and an immediate circle of influence, nobody got sick, or if they did have it, probably were asymptomatic and so didn't know. So I will say that I'm grateful. I feel like we were really blessed in that way, and really just grateful. It's in light of all that has been lost for everybody. And some have lost much more than others.
Yes.
And so we acknowledge that. The second thing I will say what COVID has done for me, I guess I could, Carmen, talk about, the challenges of pastoring in the pandemic, which has been what it's been. And, not being able to connect with people and some of the inconveniences. But I will have to say, Carmen, and this is what I tell people, like, COVID-19 wasn't bad to me. So I can't, I say that, like, I could complain about the inconveniences.
Yes.
But by and large, a lot of great stuff has come out of it. And what I mean by that, and I'm not talking about has come out of people who have lost. I'm just saying, as a pastor, as a leader, what has opened up in light of how challenging it's been. Like, it's been hard. I've had to, as run Smitty's homeschool academy for my kids, which as much as well as I can preach, homeschooling ain't my gift.
Come on now.
And so life has been inconvenient. I'm gonna acknowledge that. And a lot of doors have opened, a lot of space has been created. And I think that's part of the narrative a lot of us are not able to openly acknowledge, because there's an expectation that we're miserable and dying and on the verge of suicide.
Yes.
And while that may be someone's reality, so I'm not diminishing it.
Right.
There are a number of, and I can only speak for Black women, on all echelons of life, all, I don't know what's the proper way to say it, all scales, all levels of life, I guess, that, the pandemic, the shutdown, it created opportunity, it opened doors. Some of us got nudged into things we weren't expecting, but it worked out. it certainly creates space for conversations like this, and for me, personally, it allowed me the opportunity to take care of myself in ways that I had not done before.
Yeah.
And there are some personal goals and milestones that I wanted things to get done, and I was able to get them done primarily because I was working from home and I could share my energy doing some other things. But then on a professional level, the way in which the pandemic created new space on my job for something that we call critical conversations, and being a part of a lot of front-facing conversations as relates to racial equity, Black women, the Black church,
come on,
justice, lots of conversations that I've been a part of to add to the narrative, and to be able to give voice where we may not have had voice before. And so that's what I mean by COVID-19 pandemic shutdown has been good to me, because it's the scales have kind of balanced out to a degree. While there's been a significant loss and challenge, there's also been a lot of opportunities and doors open. And one of the things that I have said to our church throughout all of this is, in our congregation, even though anybody that's listening, really, look for the opportunities in all of this. And I think as a woman of faith, and certainly as a Black woman of faith, that's what we kind of do.
Come on now.
Yes. When you put us in a box, what I'm saying? Like we start looking for ways out the box, or how do I, without someone saying, okay, thrive in the pandemic. I think because it's so much of our story and our history is around surviving and thriving, we learn quickly how to make the most of this. I know so many women who started businesses, launched campaigns, and because our backs were against the wall and we had to figure out how to work and feed our families, or we lost a job, so we had to figure out new gifts and talents. And I think that's part of the narrative in this pandemic as relates to Black women that has to be told. The number of women who were pushed into new spaces, or who decided, you know what, I ain't got nothing to lose, I done lost everything else, let me step into a new space.
Come on.
And you see it. I see that. I'm a social media person. I see it on social media all the time, the ways in which Black women are stepping out, stepping up, stepping into, and not just waiting for space to be given, but taking up space.
Yes.
And so there is a story around loss and grief.
Absolutely.
And suffering and struggle. That is real. There are women who experience greater, incidents of domestic violence because they were home with their abuser, and women who lost jobs, and women who lost family members and had to struggle to maintain. That story is real, and that narrative is real, and it's out there, and it's not to diminish that. And there's a story of how much thriving and even scaling out has happened. And I think Black women should be able to express that as well. Listen, I'm a Christian, but what I also see, Carmen, is the number of Black women that are leaning into self-care. If this pandemic didn't teach us nothing else, baby girl, take care of yourself. Take care of your mind, take care of your body. I hear more people talking about drinking water. Refresh. What's the term that you hear on social media a lot? Hydrate, sis. I ain't never heard hydrate, sis, so much in my lifetime.
Okay.
But what we figured out was we gotta take care of ourselves. Number one, because ain't nobody coming to save us. But number two,
say that again.
Ain't nobody coming to save us. But number two, this is what the pandemic has taught us, that if we're going to survive, we've got to take care of ourselves, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, our physical health, our financial health. And so I think in addition to all the struggle and strain and strife that comes with this, that all of us across this globe has experienced, there's also this strong narrative around growth, thriving, blossoming, blooming, and self-care. That's really exploding as well. And the way in which Black women are stepping into their spirituality. And again, I'm a Christian, but I see it, so whether the people are chanting or, they're meditating, yoga, yoga, whatever. I mean, and again, this is not to, this is not to judge. I'm just saying, like, you just see it. People are
Yes.
getting into gardening and
Yes.
planting. I mean,
Yes.
all these ways that we take care of ourselves better. And that is blossoming and blooming, I think, in ways it would not have if pandemic had not come. So it's been a curse and it's been a blessing. There's this other narrative that we should also lift up, how so many women found their strength in the midst of this.
Yes.
They found themselves and discovered themselves in the midst of this.
How has COVID affected the work that you do?
It has actually made me busier. It forced our office to be creative, right? And being creative, I also have to create work and, you know, and be creative about how we do what we do at the Murray Center, which is connect with congregations. And a platform that came out of that was this thing called Critical Conversations.
Okay.
And this was about talking with high level officials, executives about how they're managing through COVID-19.
Okay.
And, you know, and that started like, you know, early part of May, early part of the pandemic was something, you know, God gave to me, and I shared it with our office and they said, yeah. So we've been running with it. So now it's something that we do. It's part of our format at the Center for Religion and Civic Culture. But what it's also done is open up other doors and opportunities to have these, what we call conversations, and what we call front facing. So it's, you're just out in the front. And so that has just opened up other doors and other opportunities. So that's what I mean by I've been busy, because once you kind of put yourself out there, and then you have something to add to the conversation, you get out there more and more. So professionally, it has allowed me to be out there more. But what I appreciate is I'm able to give voice. I don't want to say on behalf of, because God knows I don't represent Black women as a whole, but to give voice to, you know, so that the Black female voice is not left out of conversations.
Absolutely.
And being able to represent to a degree, I don't represent all, but being able to represent to a degree, you know, but also share my narrative, but not just about my narrative, but to uplift Black women, uplift Black women of faith, uplift Black mothers who've lost children. You know, these are all conversations, conversations around Black women in health. So being a part of Black women in politics, I mean, all of the categories.
Absolutely.
Being able to have a voice and, you know, to the best of my ability, try to represent Black women. And again, I don't represent them all, but be a representation of some kind in a positive way.
Absolutely.
And just really, yeah. So that's professionally, that's what has happened.
I was telling someone the other day that this is an amazing time to have your hands full with purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
To have your hands full of purpose right now is an amazing position to be in.
Yeah.
And I believe that that is how God designed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you and I have had conversations that delved more, you know, intimately into our lives and our experiences.
Right.
And I know that there was a preparation for me to this moment in time.
Yeah.
Also a warning.
Yeah.
Together, because I'm gonna be calling y'all to the table.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna work through you.
Yeah.
And so here we are. So here's our last question. What do you consider as the best resource that Black women have to not just survive, not just to recover, but to thrive during this pandemic?
Build a tribe or become part of a tribe of other Black women who don't want to just survive but thrive.
Come on now.
Find that tribe, insert yourself in that tribe, in that community, and don't let go until you get to where it is you're trying to get to. I think, you know, one of the things that came out of, you know, that I experienced when my son was murdered in 2018 was another level of appreciation for community. And even in this pandemic, having becoming part of being with a community of Black women that, you know, we all trying to not just make it, but make it well, and not just make it for ourselves, for our children, our grandchildren, for our other sisters, you know, for our community, for our family, for the neighborhoods we live in. And here's one thing so that's what I would say. I would, you know, in addition to spirit work, and faith, like spirit work. And I say that loosely because I recognize now whenever that everybody is not coming to church and going to church and a part of a church, even if it's virtual, some of that spirit work is happening between people and, you know, their sage and their plants. And that's fine. Like, I don't have no judgments. Like
That part, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I hope those who will watch and hear, like, I'm not, I believe in Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior. And in this season, I've also come to appreciate the ways in which other people are strengthening their spirit. Let me
there
say
you go.
that, right?
If it makes you stronger,
and ways in which I had not been exposed to, but because of the pandemic and because the way we're engaging differently, I've been able to talk to, experience, see, watch, listen to the ways in which other people are strengthening their spirit, and it's working. And so let it work for you, sis.
Yes.
Let it work for you. I want you to make it on the other side. And
one thing we know for sure is that there's more than one route to righteousness.
There is. I believe that. I believe it now more than ever.
Yes.
And I came into that kind of different awakening, you know, in the loss of my son, and then the pandemic just kind of reinforced it. So I salute women who are strengthening their spirit in whatever faith tradition practice that they need to, that's healthy and leading to a wholeness, and certainly self-love. And so those are my two avenues: lean into community that's of other women that are doing this for themselves, but also, or not for themselves, but with themselves, amongst each other. But any way you can strengthen your spirit and get it whole, because if the spirit is strong and whole, you can rise out of anything.